Okay, so I knew Nile Rodgers was an impressive songwriter and producer, but I hadn't really considered how impressive until my sister took me to see Duran Duran and I discovered that he was touring with them. So here's a little bit of what I learned about Nile Rodgers. Born in New York City in 1952, Nile Rodgers was exposed at an early age to great music and great musicians. When Nile was growing up, he had really bad asthma, and due to his ailment and his parents' drug addictions, he ended up living in a children's home for a while. And by the time he was well enough to move back home, his parents, due to their addiction, had become dealers. And due to that circumstance, he ended up being exposed to some of the jazz greats like Thelonious Monk and Miles Davis. It was during this time, due to the exposure to accelerated learning in the children's home, that Nile began to learn, analyze, and gain an understanding of music. When Nile was 5, his grandmother bought him his first record, Blue Suede Shoes. At the age of 12, he began working at Van Nuys Airport in Los Angeles, cleaning celebrity airplanes. And again, due to his circumstance, he was put in the path of greats as he was cleaning the airplanes of Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Ray Charles, and Elvis Presley. It was at this time, when he was about 12, that he also learned how to fully orchestrate and understood the purpose of each instrument in a symphony. At the age of 16, he learned how to play guitar and began playing with Persian, jazz, and Latin bands. He said when he first started learning to play guitar, he didn't know how to tune it correctly and had been tuning it like it was a violin. It really made him struggle to learn how to play it correctly. And eventually someone showed him how to tune it the way it was supposed to be tuned, and he said then everything just kind of fell into place. Nile's first professional gig was playing in the band for the Sesame Street television program. And it was here that he met Luther Vandross, and then eventually Ashford and Simpson, and Bernard Edwards, a bassist that he continued to work with until Edwards' death in 1996. After meeting in 1970, Rodgers and Edwards formed a rock band called The Boys, which was then changed to New York City on the advice of Christina Sinatra, who at the time was married to a record label exec. Shortly after that, they changed it again to the Big Apple Band, and they toured extensively on the Chitlin Circuit, which is a series of venues that offered commercial and cultural acceptance during the segregation period of the 1960s. In 1977, they changed their name once again to Chic and released their self-titled album, which contained the hits Dance, Dance, Dance and Everybody Dance.
It's just an outlet for us. We've been playing music for an awful long time, and we've always been into having fun. We use it as, this is our life. We like to have a ball while we're doing it.
In 1978, Chic released the iconic single La Freak, which went on to sell over 7 million copies and became the best-selling single in Atlantic Records history. Chic also released the song Good Times that year, and it went on to reach number 1 on both the pop and the R&B charts, and eventually would become one of the most sampled songs in the history of music, helping to usher in hip-hop to the mainstream, being sampled in Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang. During this time, Nile Rodgers also wrote and produced the number 1 single We Are a Family for Sister Sledge, and went on to also write the hits Upside Down and I'm Coming Out for Diana Ross. While Chic called it quits in 1983, Nile continued to write and produce. He ended up working on several major albums and singles for artists you're probably pretty familiar with. In 1983, he produced David Bowie's hits Let's Dance and Modern Love, Original Sin for In Excess, Like a Virgin and Material Girl for Madonna in 1983-1984, Wild Boys and the Reflex for Duran Duran, 1984, Nile worked again with Duran Duran in 1986, adding his stylings to their hit single Notorious. In 1989, Nile produced the song Rome for the B-52s, and then in 2004, Nile Rodgers again joined forces with Duran Duran on their album Astronaut. In 2013, Nile Rodgers helped to write and produce the international hit Get Lucky with Daft Punk. Nile Rodgers has worked with countless artists across multiple genres throughout the years, and the list is incredible. I'll just read a couple of them here. It spans 60 years and includes names like Johnny Mathis, Frank Sinatra, Paul Simon, Michael Jackson, Peter Gabriel, Mick Jagger, Lady Gaga, Prince, George Michael, Pitbull, Sam Smith, and Avicii. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Everybody has certain guidelines that they work by. In other words, we have a certain formula for doing what we do. However, we absolutely write and produce differently for each one of those artists.
Throughout his career, Nile has relied on what he has called the Hitmaker, a 1960 Fender Stratocaster with a 1959 neck. He says it produces a sound like no other guitar, and it really has created his signature sound. While Nile has been part of countless radio hits, his talents don't end there. He's also worked on movie soundtracks and video game soundtracks. Some of the video games he's worked on are Halo 2 and 3, Gears of War Judgment, Resident Evil 6, and others. He also has movie soundtrack credits on quite a few big movies, such as Coming to America, Public Enemy, Thelma and Louise, Beverly Hills Cop 3, and Cats the Motion Picture. In 1998, he co-founded Something Else Distribution, a video game production and distribution company that was the first to release a video game in 5.1 surround sound. Seeing music and artists as investments as well as entertainment, Nile Rodgers and British-Canadian music executive Mert Mercuriadis co-founded Hypnosis Songs Fund, a company focused on songs and associated musical intellectual property rights, seeing them as long-term investment assets. And by December of 2021, its catalog had grown to 65,000 songs with a value of $2.55 billion. And it currently manages or owns the music rights for artists such as 10,000 Maniacs, 50 Cent, the B-52s, Barry Manilow, George Benson, Hootie and the Blowfish, Journey, Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake, Shakira, Timbaland, and many, many more. Nile Rodgers has won 6 Grammys, been inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Songwriters Hall of Fame, has been part of over 150 television programs, including American Bandstand, and has been part of multiple documentaries on musicians such as Elton John, David Bowie, Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Rick James, George Michael, Duran Duran, Daft Punk, and many others. And in 2013, he had a documentary created on his career called The Hitmaker. With all of this incredible history, Niles is still going strong, having put Chic back together and going on tour with Duran Duran. I hope you've enjoyed this commentary on Nile Rodgers, and I'm guessing you probably have recognized some of the artists he's worked with, and hopefully some of the songs he's worked on. Give a listen to the tracks you maybe didn't recognize. I think you're going to enjoy them.